because I know for Pulsechain, it's been said that pool your liquidity. I think I asked you that before. Pull it before snapshot because you won't get your copies and it'll be considered locked liquidity.
Well, it'll be considered locked liquidity on Pulsex. So that's different. It's a whole different thing that happens with that. So if you were to leave your liquidity in Uniswap, what I'm starting to understand now is that Uniswap will already start on Pulsechain without a front end. Obviously, it takes Alex 5 minutes to make a front end for Uniswap, even after the fork, and you'd be able to just utilize it, and you'd be able to have your liquidity through Uniswap on Pulsechain.
So it might be a way for us to save that the USDC and still earn fees, because there's going to be that pair that's people are going to try to bridge over.
Dude, it's going to be weird. You're going to have ETH pairs in Uniswap front end on Pulsechain. How is it going to take the ETH that you may possibly have and make it wrapped ETH? How is it going to make it Pulse? How is it going to do anything? Because it's going to be copied into Uniswap. It might copy it over and inject it into Pulsechain as Pulse, but it's also in reality going to get copied over if it's in the Uniswap pool when it gets forked in the entire system state. So it'll be there too if you left it in your liquidity pool. It gets copied, put into Pulsex, and then just sits there as yours until someone appropriates a front end for Uniswap. I mean, we'll have two different dexes, right? As soon as somebody appropriates a front end for Uniswap, then you have a dex there pretty much. And then people will have access to all their liquidity that they, maybe thought they up and weren't able to access it. You'd even be able to do V3 if you just copied over the front end.
Right, because that's what we're going to lose out on. Initially, we're going to lose out on the V3 ability to pool our collected fees, because Pulsechain is going to be more like V2. So it's going to compound.
I find it funny that we're like, well, the only way that we're going to get it is if Uniswap actually forks over their own code over to that network. Well, and Alex just did it to 2 different networks in a couple of days, and I don't see any illegal anything happening. As a matter of fact, we just use it, right? So how it wouldn't even be that hard to do the same thing on Pulsechain too. And then boom, you don't even need Pulsex.
Alex has made our lives easier by literally just going to his DApp. If he does it with Pulsechain, we'll have everything right there.
2 actual chains by the time that Pulsechain comes out. So maybe just 3, or maybe just 2. Maybe the 2 that are currently we're dicking around with just nothing happens to them. They just keep pumping money into them and they go nowhere until after the bull run starts. And then maybe they can actually gain some value that people have extra money to play around with, and then they can actually get it going.
Hey, Executioner, a quick question, bro.
What's up, man?
Icosa, I haven't really had a lot of time to look into it, but I did stake some Hedron for 30 days. What happens after the 30 days if I don't unstake? I mean,
nothing. You just keep earning yield.
Oh, okay, for sure. So I could just leave it there if I want.
Yeah, there's only minimum staking lengths, but there's no maximum. You can just let that sucker ride for as long as you want. That's why there's that add function there, and it will.
Oh, that's right.
It'll reset your minimum, so you'll have to redo the 30 days again after you add. But generally, people don't give a shit, right? Another thing that you need to pay attention to is if today you made a stake, it's going to take today's share rate and then give you however many points for your stake, and then give you your rewards every day at 0.00 UTC based off of that, right? Let's say that a month later you decide that you want to add more to it, but the share rate has moved, right? When you add that new amount to your original stake, then it's going to use that new share rate, and it's going to you'll keep your old share rate on all the old assets that you currently had in that stake. But when you go add and it adds points, it's going to add points to the new share rate and then just add them to your calculable total of all your points together in that stake. Does that make sense?
Nice.
Yeah.
There was some people that were like, well, when I make a stake, then it should just continue to keep going off the same share rate even when I add. And it's like, how? Today is a new share rate. It needs to get the calculation from today. If you're adding today, then and the share rate moved, then there's no way for it to give you the old share rate when you're adding. So that's important for people to know that that's what they're doing. So if you put in 1,000 Icosa and got 10 B points or T points or whatever points they are, and a month later you put in another 2,000 Icosa, but you only get 8 more points instead of having 20, you only have 18. That's because the share rate moved forward and you got less for your next load of 2,000 on the ad. You lost 2 points worth of value within that month. Does that make sense? But yet still it's 18.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It sounds complicated, but really it's not. It's just math and the fact that time moved and the share rate moved. That's it.
Yeah. Do you think that's better with LPing than actually staking your X Hedron per se? Or Or are you kind of doing both?
Well, I mean, I've been a long time Hexican, so I already have my hex stakes all locked up, ready to go. And I already have my Hedron staked on all the networks.
Yeah.
And I've got my
Just gonna
Icosa
slide
staked
back.
on all the networks. So I just happen to have like a bunch of liquid Hedron. I still, on none of the networks, I haven't minted any of my stakes, none of them. So I happen to have like a lot of extra liquid Hedron. So when it all got copied over, because I was planning on participating in the liquidations. So, you know, I did all my staking stuff and got all that stuff going. So every day that I'm being rewarded for good behavior. And then, you know, I have my liquid bags so that way I can participate in the event that's coming up. On the POS network, I'm still holding on to my liquid Hedron and plan on utilizing that capital how I intended. So it's probably not better than staking. Probably not. Like actual value to not taking any risk. Probably not.
Yeah.